if you're elected, what are you going to plan? What do you plan to bring to the State House? What are you going to offer folks?
Well, I think the easy answer would be to say it's just change, but I think you just can't say, oh, I'm going to be the change on Beacon Hill, because that's kind of a pat answer, perhaps. It has to be more than change. I think you have to bring some qualifications to the table rather than just change. And I go back to, for instance, serving on the zoning board. And the zoning board was great training for government, because you sat on the board, applicants came up before you, they presented their case, you reviewed the information, you had some information in advance, so you went out and looked at the particular parcel or project that was under consideration. You did your homework. You were then presented with it at the meeting, and you had to vote then and there in public on a particular project. And after voting, you could see the result of what you had acted upon. That is about as basic a function of government, the most basic way of conducting government that there can be. Do your homework, look at all the facts before you, consider what's being presented, and then act upon it publicly in front of everybody so that they know what you considered and how you voted. That was great training, and I've tried to bring that to the City Council. I try to make it very clear where I stand on issues. I'm not afraid to speak up, and so I would bring those types of things to the State House. More open government, telling people where I stand, not being afraid to take a position on something. And on going back to the zoning board, you could have looked down the aisle at the chamber where we held the zoning board meeting. Those on the left were opposed, those on the right were in favor, and you knew you weren't going to make everybody happy, but you made your decision. And again, that was great training for government, and it's that type of way of handling issues that I'd like to bring to the state level. And also, it just goes to having a sense of what goes on at the local level. We hear about different reforms that have passed at the state level. For instance, pension reform was a big item that was touted somewhat this year, but even more so last year. And I can tell you that the pension reform that was passed had a fairly negligible impact on local pension systems. It was touted as a big reform, and it did close absolutely some loopholes that had to be closed. No question about it. But what didn't happen was a reach down to those at the local level where the impact would be felt as to the best way to structure pension reform. For instance, there was a case down in Brockton where they tried to, where somebody doubled their salary basically during the last 3 years and retired. And the legislature reacted to that and passed reform. But the reform didn't solve the problem and addressed that particular case, but I could tell you that it could happen 15 other times in a very similar manner that's just slightly different. And because they didn't reach down, ask the local officials, that reform is going to have to take place in the next legislative session. Same thing with municipal relief packages. They tout them as being great at the local level, and yet there's not a lot of reach down. They just passed an early retirement incentive, and they have some provisions in there about giving up sick time or vacation time to avail, for an individual to avail themselves of the early retirement incentive. And serving at the local level, I can tell you what's going to happen when that comes to be. There's not going to be any sick time or vacation time to be realized by the city in exchange for an early retirement incentive. And not just Quincy, but any of the other towns that may adopt it. And I'm not so sure many will. So it's touted as great reform, and they are positive steps, but I think there just needs to be a sense of what goes on at the local level so that when those things do occur at the state level, there's a better nexus between what they pass and what the impact is at the local level. So I'd like to bring change to Beacon Hill. The idea that you have to be public and clear on where you stand on issues, and that you have to make sure that when you pass legislation, you've done your research and you know exactly what the impact of that legislation will be.
Sounds good. Sounds very good. How long till the election?
The election's coming up pretty quickly. September 14th is the Democratic primary, so that'll be here before we know it. It just seems like yesterday that this campaign started, but it's actually been several months now. Sometimes it seems to go by quickly, being out there knocking on doors. All of a sudden you look up and you've been out for 3 or 4 hours, and the next thing you know, a week has gone by. And I have to confess, I was out, I think it was a week ago this past Sunday, and I was knocking on doors in Rockland, and a woman was coming across the front lawn and she had a tray of chicken wings. She was going to a party in the backyard, and so I said, oh, I know there's a cookout going on, so I was wondering if you could just pass this on to the homeowner. She says, oh, glad to do it. So I said, oh, do you live here in Abington? She goes, you're in Rockland. I had been in Abington early in the day for a rededication of a memorial, and Rockland's the next town over, so you just get going so much sometimes you forget where you're at. But as I say, people are great out there, so it's been good. But it's coming up quickly, and we're just going to keep moving on it with sign holdings, the door knocking. We'll bring out the issues. We'll do shows like this so that people get a sense of what's important and where I stand on issues. So we'll do that during the course of the campaign. And I'm looking forward to it. I think it's an exciting opportunity. Going back to the issue of what will I bring to Beacon Hill, it will be a fresh perspective, it will be change, it will be all that. And I really think there's a clamoring for that out there. A lot of people have been up on Beacon Hill for a long time. My state representative, who happens to be my opponent in this race, Steve Tobin, I was thinking about it. He was elected to the State House just shortly after I graduated from college. It was back when I actually didn't have gray hair, and before married and before having children that are now in high school, and that's a long time. And I just think that turnover is good, and turnover bringing new ideas and a new way of looking at things is good for the process. And so, as short a time as we have, we're going to get out there and try to convince the voters of the district that that's what we need here in the Senate district.
Great.
So.
Well, good luck in the coming weeks. We'll look forward to seeing you on the campaign trail.
Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be a challenge, and I just want to thank you for having the show tonight. Not tonight, I guess. Well, it is tonight that we're filming it. Right. We're not certain when it will air. And I just want to say also thank you to the voters of Quincy who have been great to me over the years. And what's been one of the very nice things in this campaign has been very humbling, is how many people have said, we appreciate what you've done, and good luck, and we hate to see you go to the State House because we like having you here. And that's pretty humbling. And I've always worked hard. I've always tried to be straightforward. And sometimes you don't know. You take a vote and you hear from people that are angry with the vote that you take. And it's always nice when people call and say, thank you for taking a vote, or I disagree with your vote, but I appreciate the way you considered it. And that's why I get involved in government. You try to make a difference, and people are very, very nice about it. You once in a while run across people who are angry, and you have to understand that and respect that. But people are good, and the people of Quincy, the voters of Quincy, have been great. It's a great city, and what I've come to realize too is that the towns that are within this district are great towns. Braintree has, and I shouldn't maybe tell each town too much, but Braintree has some phenomenal neighborhoods, and Braintree has done a very good job financially. They made some tough financial decisions a couple years ago. They did some cutbacks. They did what they had to do at the local level, and they've done pretty well financially. Joe Sullivan down there has things on track, and they've also benefited from some construction being done at the South Shore Plaza. Mm-hmm. That's helped them with the new growth component of their local municipal finance, and they've done well. And you read about Abington with its budget problems, and Rockland struggling with some issues, and Holbrook as well, but I'll tell you that they're great towns. The people there are great, the neighborhoods are great, they take great pride in where they live, and we sometimes, being in the big city, so to speak, Quincy, we sometimes don't realize that we're very fortunate to be surrounded by some great communities. So hopefully I'll be representing them in January. Time will tell, as with everything. And I'd just like to take the opportunity to respectfully ask the people of Quincy and Abington, Braintree, Rockland, Holbrook for their vote on September 14th. And I look forward to meeting them at the doors and hopefully doing more of these programs.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.